Sakara's Price from the historic Wall Center. This next guest, a presentation of the Vancouver Canadians, thanking Seas fans for another great season at the Nat this summer.
Look at the Seas fan right there. He's nodding his head. He's like, I had fun there.
No, every time I ask, he wants to come to the games. He comes to our events there.
One of these days, I got to get you guys, my buddy Tom Chipman, who has the front row seats by the on-deck circle. 4 seats. I'll get you guys. We'll sit down there. They bring you the food. They bring you the beer. I don't know what the club's called anymore, but it's great. And then there's you guys.
Is he the mouthy one who's always okay? Because there's a mouthy guy that sits down by the visitors on deck, and then there's a guy across.
I don't know what they're doing because they're of course switching dugouts for next year.
They're doing a lot of work for next year.
A lot of things.
Yeah. And if you're unfamiliar, this was part of the deal several years ago when the major leagues contracted the minor leagues and said, okay, those that remain are going to have to be up to snuff in terms of stadium facilities. And so that's why you're getting the new building down the right field line. Anyways, if you're looking to guarantee your seats for all the action in 2025, visit CanadiansBaseball.com or call 604-872-5232 or just slide into Patrick's DMs and maybe he's got some tickets.
That's right.
Yes.
I can hook you up. I'll tell you who to talk to.
Well, you talked to Tocchet yesterday at UBC.
Speaking of which.
And he was interesting as always. And big rugby guy.
It turns out.
He warms your heart, huh?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, one of those days. Everyone was going out to Abbotsford. Wasn't dealing with the Abbotsford game directly. Coos was out there. So I went to UBC, and there was, to my surprise, Rick skating around with his guys.
What guys? Wait, just everybody who wasn't playing at Abbotsford?
Miller, Boeser, anybody who wasn't playing last
So
night.
Miller was skating. Okay, that's good.
Oh, yeah, I had a nice chat with JT. I mean, this is kind of where it comes out of, talking culture. And how do you guys get to, you had good stuff happening last year. How do you get, how do you repeat that? And inevitably end up talking to the coach about that. And Tocchet is a guy who looks at everything. He mentioned, visiting NFL camps and out of nowhere mentions the All Blacks. And I'm like, wait, what? And Chris Faber's the only other guy out there. His head just goes, oh God.
Yeah, wrong guy to say this to. Yeah.
Bro, are you a rugby guy? So it turns out Rick had this. Yeah, Rick played. He actually played rugby in high school. I don't quite know. I mean, he started for the Sioux, but I guess playing rugby in the fall or I don't know when or in the spring. I don't know when he would have done this.
Surprised they greenlit that, but okay.
But it was, back in the day, he did everything. Yeah. And Rick says, well, I played till I was 18. Then obviously I became a professional hockey player.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was like, oh, I guess so. But you look at Rick. I mean, the guy would have been on number 8. What a beast.
Oh,
the great untapped Canadian rugby player, Rick Tocchet.
And honestly, my nose is already broken, so why not?
Hey. Honestly, though, I think you could show Tocchet's mug to pros in just about any sport, and they would say, that's a football player. That's a rugby player. That's a hockey player. That's a, go on down the line.
Imagine Rick as a middle linebacker. Holy smokes.
For sure. In the Butkus Nitschke for sure vein. Yeah, no, of course. Okay. So what else did Coach tell you apart from charming you with his rugby bona fides?
We talked. I mean, there was the culture discussion. I asked him about Demco. He said, no, still no timeline. Listen, he's had 10 to 12 good. We're looking at days. We talk about days. He's had many consecutive days, 10 to 12 good days. We're feeling good, but they still don't want to, really put the pressure on him to have this is when he's going to be back. And I mean, the mood is relatively upbeat, feeling good about, I asked him about Jonathan Lekaramaki, and I said, obviously we know the kid can score, but what are you looking for? And he brought up a play he made Tuesday night in a breakout. I don't know if this kid really has a chance, but they're certainly very happy with where he is and how he's progressing. And very high again on Niels Höglander, hyped up his fitness.
Okay.
And you're looking at guys and how you're going to, especially, we don't know necessarily when Dakota Joshua returns, but in the near term, certainly clearly a roster opportunity for someone, and how you build your roster without Dakota Joshua on it for the time being. There are some interesting questions, where you put people. Everyone's instinct obviously was put Heinen with Miller and Boeser, but I think, you could understand why people might have been thinking about putting Joshua there. Well, he's not there, and he's certainly not going to be with Garland and Suter or however else that line shakes out. So where do you put Hoagland, or where do you give Lekaramaki a look right off the top? These are all certainly interesting questions, and I think Tocchet has. Last spring, I went back and thought about this when Brett Boeser gets hurt and it's Game 7 against Edmonton, and he brought up maybe we'll play Lekaramaki. Like it was. He said, I don't know really anything about the kid, and I think coming into training camp he was still intrigued. He didn't really know. He wanted to see him in person, and now he knows a little bit about him. And it's clear the way he's talking about him that the high hopes I think I first heard from Jim Rutherford are now bleeding into the head coach. I'm not, like I said, I don't know if he'll start the season, but it's not impossible. I think it's a non-zero chance now.
I want to get into what we saw last night. Just one thing on Demko. Yeah. What do you think? Like, what I'm unclear on, like, what are they looking for before they give him a green light? Like, are they looking for weeks on of no pain, weeks on minimal pain? What do you think what are they looking for here?
Well, as I understand it, similar to I think what Kevin Woodley said, there's this very weird little muscle that mostly doesn't count. You ask any sort of my buddy had an orthopedic surgeon said, "Oh, that muscle doesn't even count.
That doesn't do anything."
Yeah, I mean, and on its own, from what I understand, it usually that's a muscle that gets damaged because there's been like ACL or PCL damage. Like on its own is why it's so rare. And there are case examples. There are rugby players and soccer players, and I believe a downhill skier who've dealt with this from what people I've talked to. But it's not it's not a pain threshold thing. It's not necessarily a functionality thing. I think it's just.
So what is it?
I guess because of, think about the way when he heard it, right? He slams into the post and basically, I guess, does that in the back. I don't mean that's me guessing, but does something enough that goes, oh, that's weird. And it's just a weird feeling. And I think it's just more than anything. First of all, there was obviously some kind of muscle damage. I mean, that's what Demko himself said. So it's about letting the muscle heal. It's a weird muscle that doesn't really do anything for most of us. I don't think we ever even feel it because we're walking and running and whatever. But you're playing goalie in these weird ways. You're contorting your legs. I just guess it. Maybe you feel it. It's like I said, it's not a pain threshold thing. I've been told. It's just getting through it. And
okay.
I think, I mean, more than anything, it's
still vague, right? And I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, I don't know what we're waiting on.
I think the things to understand was that, he took 4 weeks off or thereabouts in June when he had the procedure, comes back, and he couldn't, for discomfort, whatever it is, he clearly couldn't start his sort of off-season work until relatively recently. Yeah. All the anxiety we started hearing in August all matches with all this stuff. And that's the anxiety was, well, he hasn't been able to start the way he wants to start.
So, fellas, I think one thing is perfectly clear, particularly after we heard what we heard last week from Thatcher Demco himself and heard that he specifically wanted to address the media on this, is that nobody but Thatcher Demco is making this call.
Right.
Like Thatcher Demco is going to tell the whole lot of them when he is ready to play a game. And I don't think anyone is going to pressure him to play a game before that word comes down. He seems very sensitive and very custodial with regards to how this injury is going to be described out here in the public sphere and how it's going to be managed on a day-to-day basis. So, and until then, there's always Artie. Yeah, we got the Artie party.
And Kevin Lankinen.
And we have Kevin Lankinen, and it's our first time talking to you since the signing, and I think it was super wise, but feel free to disagree.
The signing was wise? Is that what you're saying, Matt?
Yes, that's his feeling.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too. They got the price they wanted. Like, look at the cap hits. That it's essentially the same as
beautiful. It's beautiful. Like they got him. They waited him out. camp started, he lost all the leverage and he signed for a bargain basement dollar.
At 1.4, we've got ourselves at 1.4 per year. We've got a real debate, but at 860 or whatever it is, there's no debate.
Yeah, he's an NHL goalie. He's an NHL goalie.
And I'm happy to give him the 8-team no trade clause if that's what cinched it at that number. That's a no-brainer too.
He's an NHL goalie. He was pretty good as UC Saros' backup. He was pretty good on a terrible Blackhawks team. Like he's going to be fine. He's exactly what you want. I said this last year at one point. I said Casey Smith is the best backup goalie they've had since I think I said Eddie Lack.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Lankinen's probably. I was certainly going to be better than Casey DeSmith was.
He's the best backup goaltender they've had since Thatcher Demco.
Well, it depends how you feel about Thatcher Demko's 1 year as Jacob Markstrom's backup.
He was an heir apparent.
Well, he was the backup.
But he was an heir apparent. Yes.
But how he actually played that season was not great. But
until the playoffs, and
sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, the point is that this is a quality, consistent goalie who found himself in a weird spot in the market this summer. I guess overvalued his worth. And other teams, and the way the goalie market did structure out. That was on his side of things. Clearly, they were waiting to see how things were going to shake out. Detroit has four goalies on NHL contracts. John Gibson still has been traded. There were variables in the market that they were, I think, curious to see how they were going to shake out. But in the end, the opportunity to play here, overrode all that. The chance to make more money possibly somewhere else. In the end, you couldn't wait any longer. And as you said, the Canucks won that one, and they're better for it.
Moving along. And can we all agree, because I know we like the phrase since Botchford gifted it to us all those years ago, drunk on. But when it comes to Daniel Sprong, can we say sprung on Sprong? Like just for the oration and the alliteration of it. The market sprung on Sprong when he signed because of the goals per minute and the offensive game that's there. From J-Pat and everyone else reporting at training camp, like the shots got some pop. Like this guy is an NHL level shooter.
Yeah.
And then he goes out and scores a beautiful goal to tie
Bro did his deeks to borrow another one, right?
Oh, exactly. Doing his deeks.
Yeah.
So we're asking on our poll question today, Peach, do you think he'll earn a spot in the Canucks top 6? And I would preface it by saying we don't necessarily mean straight out of camp and preseason here and in the opening 2 weeks of the season, but at any point during this year, do you think he'll hold down a top 6 role for this team?
It's all about can they help him understand all the bits and pieces that I guess Andrei Kuzmenko couldn't, right? That's
a pure offensive guy. Yeah.
That is why Tocchet urged the team to move on from Andrei Kuzmenko, was that they're just, for all those kind of fun bits that he maybe brought offensively. Kuzmenko was not producing as well, but for all the bits, there was just too much off the puck chaos. And that has been the knock on Sprong. Why a guy who has that time? That's the best. Let's be fair. It's a great goal, but it's the best preseason goal since Paolo Bure's stick to foot to stick, which I'm always amazed how much people talk. Like, do people not understand that was like, it's September 26th, 1996. Like, it's a preseason game. Anyway, Sprong's goal was fantastic. It was so much fun. It brought to life a game, otherwise, the fans got what they paid for with that goal. It is all the other things away from the puck. And I go back to the Tocchet thing we talked about off the top. And I asked him essentially, what are you looking at in Lekerimäki? And he will be looking at this and the same thing. And Sprong is a player they obviously know, right? That he was a guy that came up in Pittsburgh, that there's a body of work that they're well aware of, or lack thereof. They're well aware of. And that's what it comes down to. And so on that standpoint, if I'm cruel, I say no, but of course people love optimism. So I'm going to say yes. Yes, he will get some shifts at some point this season with Elias Pettersson, because he and Pettersson should have some outstanding moments. To me, the thing you could do here, if you're really creative, is that he is a guy that's a bit of a specialist. You, depending on how you shake things out, that he's on the lineup. Rick Tocchet loves his pairings, right? So if you end up with a bit more, you sort of line him up on the fourth line, but he isn't necessarily going to take a lot of shifts with Teddy Bluger. He's playing a bit on the power play. He's playing a bit with Pettersson here and there. And occasionally, I guess you're getting some offensive zone faceoffs where he's playing against the other team's fourth line or something like that. So yeah, I that's the role I think he certainly starts in. Whether it grows beyond that and it becomes a regular on the Pettersson line, all comes down to whether they can turn him into more than he's been. And if it doesn't really work out, they'll move on. That's the other thing this team's learned, is that they'll be ready to move on if something doesn't work.
I do love the fact that they do have somebody that can do that, though, because I don't know that they have anybody on the roster that can pull that out. Just where nothing else is working on a given night, but somebody might be able to do that just to get you a goal. Yeah. It's nice to know that guy exists on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. The skating is the skating is outstanding. Not many rivals for that quality skating. We have seen guys we've seen JT Miller go end to end, but he's not skating like that. He's a bull, right? He's powering his way through the defense as opposed to just skating by them. Also, let's be real. As I said, it's preseason. I'd like now show me to do that against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Right.
But
hey, he's got the shot too. So he's not a one-trick pony. Some guys just deke. Yeah. But this guy's a stand-still shooter is pretty valuable too. So
there's
it's a pretty good toolbox offensively.
Offensively, fantastic. So, the guy scores.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've already said it. Like the goal rate, the rate numbers, the rate he scores, puts up points is fantastic. There is no getting around that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the other part of the game that is the question.
Overall in the preseason, a lot of the new guys have had a flash moment, which is what we always say in the preseason and in these scrimmages, just show us something to get the fans excited and show your coach where you can. Everybody sort of tick that box. The rest of the preseason now, can you show that there's any level of consistency to that? I guess it would be the next want. But I love the fact that they've set the hook, I think, in a lot of us here of this is what I'm capable of. And that goes to Kiefer Sherwood, and even to Vinny Desharnais, who showed maybe over exuberantly how physical he can be. But everybody's sort of done their job through 2 games of the preseason here.
Yeah, let's not forget it's only a 6-game preseason.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of these guys, you're going to the opening lineup will clearly be October 4th at home against Edmonton. That's almost certainly going to be whoever's going to open the season in the lineup. So you got 2 games. You got Friday, Saturday, and then you got a game Monday.
To tinker. Yeah.
So out of those, you
don't think there'll be a roster battle on that October 4th?
There's always a couple guys. Sure, there's always a couple guys on the edge. Absolutely, yeah. Don't get me wrong, but for the most part, almost all the questions will be settled by then. If you just sort of think about it, okay, everyone's getting. Certainly, all the veterans are getting 3 games. Like Pettersson and Hughes will play one of the games this weekend, or they'll play on Monday, and then most of them will play next Friday. But you're looking at the likes of Lekkerimäki. They're leaning on Lekkerimäki, and Tocchet brought this up. You lean on the guys that played back to back. He brought up. He said some of the guys in the HL play 3 games in three days, and sometimes the Sunday games at lunchtime. So the young guys, they're going to lean on, I think, on this pretty heavily. JT Miller has always said he's realistic in how he starts his preseasons now. He's slow and steady, and he learned when he was young not to come out gangbusters. But he still needs 3 games. It's a preseason though that is different because there's such a short window. So the ability to apply all the things and build all the things that Tocchet certainly will want to be working on in terms of systems and, obviously talking about rush, building stuff off the rush. That's going to be much more of a work in progress. It is very much about individual assessment and what do you do from moment to moment. And are you, how close are you? And like I said, is Jonathan Lekkerimäki really going to get open the season with his team, or are they going to just sort of let's
probably not, right?
Yeah, right. Like
probably not, but we'll see what happens, particularly in these next 2 or 3 preseason
You
games.
likely can't have Lekkerimäki and Daniel Sprong making the team in the top 6, right? Like
no,
kind of
right?
No, but that's like I said,
like Sprong could be a situational specialist, though,
yeah, that's
right? Down line,
like that's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
answer me this: Blake and I had a bit of a debate on this.
I'm shocked.
And Blake pulled out a buttered toast analogy of all things. Soucy and Desharnais, Myers with Forbert, and so underpinning sort of a bigger, less mobile, less puck competent guy with a guy who can skate a little bit and is used to playing higher up the lineup.
Yeah.
Or Soucy and Myers and Forbert, Desharnais, and fingers crossed when the third.
One yummy half of the toast and one dry toast, or one sort of full piece of
mostly buttered, but some unbuttered spots on the toast.
Can I, just before we move on, can we, if we go with Hughes Hronek, I mean, is that honey toast? Is that
that's honey toast? Yeah, honey
everything.
and butter.
That's
cinnamon sugar toast. Like, what are we talking about here?
That's French toast, baby.
French toast. Okay.
Good French toast too. Not the crappy like burnt stuff, but the crafted artisanal French toast.
Realistically, Tyler Myers should be on your third pair. So that means
on a great team, yes, but that's
But the Soucy Myers pairing played pretty well last year. It's hard to imagine them going away from that. Soucy, to me, was much better than we anticipated. And I'm choosing that word as opposed to expected. We anticipated I don't think we recognized that he'd be quite as dynamic as he proved to be. But he's also not truly a number 3, right? But I think you end up with the way that dynamic works. I can see them going together. I mean, I think they're gonna. That's partly why I think the Hronek chatter with splitting Hughes Hronek up, although clearly Quinn Hughes doesn't think much of the idea.
No.
I think that is partly why there's been that noise. But then I don't know who you really play with Quinn Hughes. So, like I said last week, like the forwards I think are fun. To me the questions are on the blue line because Forbort Desharnais is going to be not very mobile.
No,
and that's so there's a very specific way to use those guys. Even slotting in Noel Juleson, right? Like Noel Juleson is presumably your number 7.
Not that best.
It's not the best. No. It's an obvious need, and if they are really going to try to accrue cap space, it's the obvious place they would probably like to add a player down the stretch.
I did barn burner in Calgary today, and I told them they're coming for Rasmus Andersson, baby. After 2 trades last year with the Flames for Lindholm and Zadorov, they are emptying the cupboard for Rasmus Andersson by the trade deadline. So go out and bone up on Lekkerimäki and Wielander because one or both of those guys will be Calgary Flames prospects.
Nils Höglander, maybe. Who knows?
Nils Höglander as well.
Does the ghost of Sven Baertschi come the other way in that trade as well?
I reminded them. Sven Baertschi is what procured you Rasmus Andersson. He should have been a Canuck if not for Jim Benning letting Brian Burke out of jail with Sven Baertschi, a guy who he had sewered in the market publicly, and somehow it was one of the first signs, Patrick. These guys might not know what they're doing. They just gave up a pretty good pick for a player who was days away from being released.
He's a hell of a guy, though. Sven was nice.
Great guy.
Like Sven
Great guy. I thought, I think he probably
last time we talked to him,
better,
though, he was so bitter. But I mean, I get it.
No, okay. He got treated badly here in the end.
Well, everybody got treated badly here because it was a dysfunctional, horrible organization for a good part of the time that Sven was here.
This will do that, yeah.
Thank you for this, Patrick.
On that note, see ya.
Mm-hmm.